So are you looking for a short-term rental? Maybe you're looking for an investment property, but you're not sure, the numbers just aren't really working for you. Well, this video is going to be for you. I'm going to look at why right now short-term rentals in Kelowna are one of the hottest investment strategies to go with. Thank you for being with me for the short term, but if you want to be with me for the long term, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future videos of living in Kelowna. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's Mark Coons here with Coldwell Baker, Horizon Realty here in Kelowna. And this week we're looking at why Airbnb properties right now are the best investment and why you should maybe, and what to look for if you are looking for investment properties, especially in British Columbia. So, looking at right now the Kelowna housing market, there's definitely a gap between how much homes are currently tenanted, maybe with an existing tenancy that is a little bit dated, an older tenancy, and what homes are selling for that could maybe get vacant possession where you can put a new tenant in at today's market rent. So we're going to look into what the market rents are going for, how much it's increased in the last year, and why really Airbnb right now, with such volatility in the rentals and rents increasing so much, why short-term rentals right now in Kelowna is one of the best options where you can get kind of and bang for your buck. Yes, it does come with additional headaches and additional maybe expenses, that sort of thing. However, it might set you up better for the long term with short-term pain for long-term gain, as they say. So let's get right into it. As we're looking into it, tenancy laws right now in BC really heavily favor the tenants, which I guess, rightfully so. Otherwise, they'd probably be called landlord laws. But, that just really sounds like a TV show on HDTV or TLC. So I don't think that's going to fly. But joking aside, what it really boils down to is how much a landlord could increase the rent by. Right now in BC, the biggest rent increase you can do in 2022 is 1.5%. So we're going to get into that a little bit later, but houses have increased 30% this past year, over 30%, and so that's about 30% shy. There's 32% increase on the average home prices in Kelowna, so you're about 30% shy in the increase in rent just to be able to cash flow on the additional mortgage payments. That means your mortgage payments are going to be 30% more. You're going to have additional, as a landlord, additional 30% of expenses just solely on the property. If you can't translate that back to the end consumer, it really makes it an issue for looking at rental properties. And that's why right now a lot of landlords and a lot of people are moving towards the short-term rental route so they can take care of the short term and also have, if they do want it, the flexibility, and they can go and put a long-term tenant in it down the road once the rapid increase in rents and the rapid increase of housing has really increased. So if you are looking at investments and you want to be a landlord, maybe you have some additional cash, but you're just not, the numbers aren't making sense. You're looking at the numbers, you're trying to crunch the numbers, and the rent isn't really covering enough for you to be able to purchase that house with the mortgage payments, the insurance, the strata payments, everything that comes along with home ownership. And you're just, you're struggling, you're pulling out your hair. That's why I'm lost a little bit in there, but that's besides the point. But so if that does sound like you, one of the ways you can get and be a landlord is getting into the short-term rentals. Right now, tenancy laws, everything like that, it's not, you don't have a whole lot of say, and maybe you can't get maybe you don't want to deal with the same tenant over and over, and you want to maybe have it somewhere to enjoy. Maybe it's a short-term rental in Big White, maybe it's a vacation rental with a lakefront property, places that allow the short-term rentals. Maybe that's something that you can enjoy. Maybe it'll cover itself and then you can enjoy it for free. And that could also be another strategy. Everybody has their different strategies, why they want to have an investment property. But I guess you have to choose what kind of investment property you want and what you want to do with the funds. Thank you for being with me for the short term. But if you want to be with me for the long term, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future videos of living in Kelowna. As with any market, let's dig into the first little bit of the topic. And as with any market, typically the markets will balance itself out with the supply and the demand. However, as the cost of housing increases, generally speaking, so will the cost of rent. Sometimes there's a lag in it, and it really depends on each individual situation. Every market really comes down to rental supply. So the rental market, it really comes down to rental supply and how much demand there is for each of the properties. This year alone, we saw houses increase, 32, 33, even more percent in the last year. But really, has rents been able to keep up? When you're looking at an existing rental, so you'd have an existing rental, maybe the numbers off of even 2020, what they've actually seen. So a year ago, what the average rent is rents are up 32% for 1 bedroom. And for 2 bedrooms, they're up 31%. And we already discussed this number. So how much did housing prices increase in 2021? 32%. So really the rental market is balancing it out. However, that's only for new rentals. So that's where it makes it tough when you have an existing rental for the numbers to really make sense. So that's where, as a seller, if you're selling a property that has an existing tenancy, maybe that tenancy is 5 years old, well, you can only increase it by 1.5%, say in 2022. So that's not even close to the number of what you could actually get if you were to put it back on the market. So that really makes it, unless somebody's going to move into a house, makes it not the greatest rental property. So you do cut out a certain portion of the potential buyers by selling that home with the existing tenancy. You can get the tenant out, you'd have a little bit ability to market it. So that's where we're seeing the shift right now, where and why investors right now are moving to the Airbnb side of things, is because they can Airbnb it, especially in the volatile times where rent is increasing so much, but the amount of the increase, what you can do and pass on to the tenant, is so little. There's a 30% gap for 2022 alone for what you can really do, and it doesn't make sense for a lot of new rentals, new tenancy agreements. So we're seeing a reduction in some, unless they can get a vacant possession, or maybe it has an up and down suite, and sometimes the numbers might work out. However, we're seeing that's fewer and fewer between, and if you're an investor, you're probably seeing that across the board, especially in Kelowna, if that's where you're looking. Right now, but where you have a little bit more flexibility, providing you. So the shift right now is really just to move, and you get a little bit more flexibility. So you rent the property out nightly, and you get your return. Maybe you're paying a management fee. Those fees can add up. It's 30 to 40% potentially, depending on who you go with, or if you want to take on the additional work, you can keep a lot of that for yourself. But really the issue with short-term rentals is just the headaches of, scheduling cleaners and the turnover of the unit. If you do hire a property management company, they'll take all those headaches away from you, so you can run it, virtually touch-free. You don't really have to put in a whole lot of work because they handle a lot of that, and you also get to still use the property. That is all providing the property zoning allows for short-term rentals, and you can also get vacant possession, because if it has an existing tenancy and you're not going to occupy it, it is also still tough to get the tenant out of it, even if the property does support Airbnb potential. And with going that route, you can, once the market settles down, you can have all the opportunity to be able to continue to maybe even put in a long-term rent tenant in it. It's not that you have to manage this short-term rental all the time. You can eventually put in a long-term tenant to take some of that hassle away, but you also have the upside to be able to get through and get a bit higher market rent until the rapid increase with the inflation and everything happening, house prices increasing, a lot of things happening right now in the real estate market. Until that balances out a little bit, that might be a good opportunity for you to mitigate some risk and get a tenant. Or maybe you could also get the best of both worlds and find a student on an 8-month term and set it up for that, and then rent it out for the 4 months in the summer when the student tenant isn't going to be there. Maybe they're moving back home for the summer, that sort of thing. Great opportunity to mitigate some risk, create some monthly cash flow, but also have the upside of the nightly rentals and being able to take in the summer. Maybe you want to use it yourself. So really it comes down to the risk reward. How much are you willing to take on? Looking at the short-term rental definitely is a lot more risk. We own a seasonal rental at Big White. We have a cabin up there, and it's not much of a destination in the summer. It is starting to get better with some mountain biking and everything like that. However, we do have to bank on making all of our money to really break even, or make a little bit of money during the peak season. So there definitely is a little bit of risk where you're really compressing it to a short period of time. You know, if you're finding a property downtown, maybe you're looking for a lakefront property in the Shuswap, you're going to need to really compress the amount of time that you make the money into the short. Maybe it's the summer if you have that lakefront property, because you're not really going to get a whole lot of rentals during the winter, and vice versa for a cabin at Big White, that sort of thing. So you really have to take that in mind. So there's additional risk that you do take on. However, there are some ways that you can maybe mitigate some of it, and maybe you just like the property, use it for yourself. And Big White, we're able to get nightly rentals up to $500 a night for our 3-bedroom cabin. So there are definitely reasons why you can do it, but you know, we're probably down in the summer. If we do want to rent it out for, we'll maybe get 1 week a month in the summer, we're probably down to $200 a night for that. So it's definitely a lot tougher, but there's other ways to mitigate it. So it depends on what you're looking for. But let's reach out if you do have questions in chat, because there's a lot of options. Different properties will offer different returns, and different properties will also offer different opportunities with mitigating some of the risk with maybe getting a student rental in there, or just being able to find something that's really affordable and everybody wants to use year round. All right, so here we're back at the title of the episode to end this. But why are Airbnb properties the best investment right now in Kelowna? Well, one word for you is flexibility. I've touched on it. You do have a lot of flexibility with what you charge per night. You can really knock it down, and you know, or bringing it up, you know, you can really kind of play with it, and you can really dictate how you can run the rental on how it goes. You can also, you're not tied into any contract, so you can have a little bit more flexibility that if you do end up wanting to rent it out long term, you can, and you're not tied into that long term tenancy act. So, but anyways, everybody needs long-term rentals as well, so there is a case for it. It's just maybe not the best, and it's coming harder and harder and fewer between to find those, unless you can get a vacant possession. If you can get a vacant possession of a home or a condo, that sort of thing, it might be a good investment where you can put in a long-term tenant at the market rate. But with market rates increasing continuously to increase, it might become fewer and fewer. So I want you to be able to take some checks to the bank, but also provide some people with some housing that is definitely needed here right now in